About 2.8 million ethnic Chinese live in Indonesia. They make up just 3% of the population, but over the generations, they've contributed greatly to Indonesia's economic and cultural development. They're called Tionghoa, the Bahasa Indonesian word for Chinese people. Millions were born and raised in the country and identify as Indonesian Chinese. But their history has been mired by discrimination that has at times turned violent. Chinese migrants started settling on Indonesia's main island of Java in the late 13th century. They built a thriving community in Lasem, in the central part of the island, which became known as Tiongkok Kecil, or Little China. The Chinese lived and worked alongside local Indonesians, and intermarriage between the different ethnic groups was common. But under Dutch colonial rule, the population was split into classes by race. The Dutch used the Chinese as middlemen to collect crops and taxes from the native Indonesians. That led to resentment against the Chinese, resulting in discriminatory policies in later years. When Indonesia gained independence from the Dutch in 1945, then-President Sukarno prevented the Chinese from doing business outside of the cities. Under President Suharto, opportunities for Indonesian Chinese to hold government and military posts were limited. They were also not allowed to practice Chinese traditions and urged to change their names to Indonesian-sounding ones. But Suharto also relied on powerful Chinese businessmen to build Indonesia's economy. When the economy collapsed during the Asian financial crisis, the rich Chinese were blamed for it and became a target of the other Indonesian races. In May 1998, violent anti-Chinese riots erupted in the capital Jakarta and the city of Medan, where most Indonesian Chinese lived. Chinese businesses were looted and burned, and Chinese women were raped. More than 1,000 people, both ethnic Chinese and other Indonesian races, were killed. Policies changed after Suharto resigned as president in 1998. The new government repealed the law banning Chinese cultural performances. Chinese names were no longer discouraged, and Chinese New Year even became an official public holiday. Today, Chinese influence can be seen in the popularity of martial arts, feng shui, and traditional Chinese medicine among Indonesians. Chinese temples can also be found throughout the country. But discrimination against the Chinese can still be seen in some parts of Indonesia. A local law in Yogyakarta prohibits Indonesian Chinese from owning land, even though the national law says all Indonesian citizens, regardless of ethnicity, have that right. Many locals also wrongly perceive the Chinese as dominating the Indonesian economy, a point often used as political leverage during elections. Hundreds of years after the Chinese first arrived in Indonesia, equality for their descendants is still an uphill battle.